This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Going at things alone, it's not impossible. But when difficulty strikes, flying solo is one of the more challenging situations to be in. There is nobody to pick up the slack, and the weight of the world is solely on your shoulders. All great structures are built with more than one block. As time moves on and more blocks are added to the structure, the weight of the entire house rests upon the first two blocks set in place. Knock those two blocks out, and the structure will crumble. There are several times throughout history where having a partner makes you stronger. You need the ability to have your decisions checked and your instincts verified, driving home the mantra that none of us are as strong as both of us. I'm Kevin Donaldson, here with Mike Failace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we go back to episode 9. Yeah. This is episode 99.
9D9.
9D9. So episode 99, the suffering of 9D9. And as you can see, we're in a little different location today because we wanted to shake it up. This is a big event for us.
We're on the road.
Yeah, you know, we talk about episode 9 so frequently. I thought it was appropriate to do something a little different today.
I mean, because that was the beginning.
That was
it was the beginning for us. You did have eight episodes before.
They were like scrimmages.
Yeah, it was preseason.
It was preseason. It was getting my bearings going because you know we're going to get into all the little different things that new podcasters go through. Before we do, I want to give a big shout out to Toyota of Hackensack. We buy our cars from Toyota because we don't trust anybody, and go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. As usual, Mike, we have to do a social media question.
Let's go. I'm all
and
over.
This one comes from Philip. Real simple. What was your favorite episode?
That's not simple.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot.
I could pick out 90 different good episodes. I'm going to have to go Gene Halberger.
Gene's always a very popular one.
That's always,
it's pulling the heartstrings so hard.
De Palma.
What about Clark?
Clark, yeah. Clark's was one of the most gut-wrenching.
Clark's was hard to listen to.
It was tough to do, and it was tough to go home and watch it.
You know, Amanda Coleman blew for the Irish Angel, because the problem I had with Amanda Coleman's episode was we just kept walking down and walking
and
down.
We kept waiting for it to come back up.
Right. You know, because we never leave an episode on a low note. Yeah. That one we sort of had to and break it up into two pieces. I was just waiting for that climb.
Well, I mean, we did the two-parter with her, so next week hopefully it's going to be the
right.
whole uphill after that, because every time Amanda brought something up, it just dug a hole deeper.
You know,
and then it dug it deeper.
It's hard to pick out one episode because each episode has its merits. Like throw out Pastor Ron Lewis. That was like sitting down with Jordan Peterson, just listening to those pearls of wisdom coming out of his mouth, and the positivity. And I just spoke to him on Sunday, and you know, he gave us some real good props on that. He gave it to a friend who apparently is very, very critical, and he says, I can't stop listening to that episode. He said, I listened to it about 10 times already.
You know, I like the remotes we did too when we went to Live Free Farm.
The Live Free Farm was better than Hackensack Brewery.
Well, because we were rookies then. We had no idea what was going on.
Not to mention a hurricane happened at the end of it. You know, it got so bad
we had to shut down.
We had to hold the tent with our hands to keep it from flying away. That's how bad it got in there.
The blue suicide when we were on the trailer bed
with Sheriff David Clark.
Sheriff David Clark.
We did Dr. Steph there. We did Anna Peisch, and we did Sheriff David Clark, and that's where we met the Mike Dowd.
Yeah,
and Charlie Cifarelli from the 14th and 2nd.
You know, I mean, just something small like that. You know, how many connections did we get out of that? Like I said, we got Sheriff Clark, Charlie. We got Mike Dowd.
And Blue Magazine, their whole
Blue
crew.
Magazine.
They actually just went down to Florida, and I wanted to go, but you know, I can't leave my kids during football. I can't do it. I leave them already one night a week to come record, and it's hard for me to do it. So picking out, Philip, to answer your question, to pick out one episode that was good for us, they all have their merits. I hate to give you that politician type answer, but they all have their merits.
Yeah,
every single one of them.
wish we had a call-in line where we call Philip and say, what was your favorite episode? I'd love to talk to the audience and say, what was your favorite episode?
To think about it, and this is going to be a nice segue into this episode, 9D9.
9D9.
One of my favorite episodes was episode 9.
Yeah.
We were 8 episodes prior to that. It was figuring stuff out.
Well, I mean, you did have a partner at the beginning, correct?
I did. Oh, so that's something important to talk about. So when you get a podcast partner, sometimes you just don't gel.
Yeah.
You're trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. And
without a hammer.
Yeah, and I had an inkling that he was going to drop. Like I had an inkling. And listen, I still talk to him. I coach his kid, for God's sakes. There's no hard feelings, but I had a feeling he was going to drop. I could just see his interest waning in it, and he wasn't giving. And so after after 2 episodes. Yeah, it was after 2 episodes. Here's exactly how it went down.
It was right after the election.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was one for one side that didn't win, and sort of kind of threw him into a little bit of a tailspin. But I had a whole episode planned where we were going to bring the wives in. It was going to be the suffering of marriage. And I thought it was a great episode, and I prepped everybody. His wife was coming in, my wife was coming in, and we always recorded on a Sunday then. I get a call Saturday morning. I'm on the spin bike, and I get a call and says, "Yeah, I'm not doing a podcast anymore." I'm like, no, it was episode. I'm sorry, that was supposed to be episode 4. I go, what the fuck? Like I got so mad because what got me mad was not that he was going to do it, because like I said, I had inklings that he was going to do it. It was doing it one day before, and at that time we had no leeway. Like we're a month ahead of time now. We had no leeway back then.
Well, we've had a lot of people bail out on us a day before.
Yeah.
A couple hours before.
We had a reality star who forgot that he went down the shore as we're sitting in studio, and we were doing a double that day.
Yep.
We were doing Kevin Dombrowski, The Suffering of a Comedian, and
which was another good episode.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and I always kept my phone on the desk because we were only doing audio, so we didn't have cameras in front of us. And I see a text from our go-between. Like he didn't even have enough respect to text me. I was like, you son of a bitch, man. I got so mad, and I think we stopped recording. I go, yeah, he just canceled.
It's funny too, because I told you I ran into him one day at a high school football game.
Yeah.
And introduced myself, and the first thing he said, "Oh yeah, I really want to come in and see the show, or do the show,
do the suffrage."
Yeah, let's do the suffrage.
Let's do the suffrage. But you know what?
We had a police officer that bailed out because it was snowing.
Oh yeah, yeah, I forgot about that. A police officer, and that was insane. Yeah, like you're a police officer, you work in bad weather. Come on. But
I don't want to come up because it's snowing out.
But that we get those guests in there, and it seems like a good idea when you schedule them, when they schedule with you, and I know they want to do it, but then they think about it and they get cold feet. We're to the point now where we're scheduling 2 months ahead of in advance.
We're set for a while.
So if you schedule somebody 2 months in advance, and they have 2 months to think about it.
Yeah.
It's like selling a car, like Toyota of Hackensack. The salesmen will all say this stuff. You want to get them before they wake up. That's the terminology that they will use. So it's not take advantage of them, but they have what's called buyer's remorse. And it happens with podcast guest remorse, where they start thinking about it like, fuck, I got to bare my soul. I'm not going to do this shit.
Have there been times, and I don't want to pick out a specific episode, where you will, like we used to do it on Sunday mornings. Mm-hmm. You ever wake up Sunday morning and say, like, I really don't feel like doing this today?
Never.
I don't feel like talking to this guy. But there are some subjects.
Guests?
Yeah.
Yes.
Guests?
Yes.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yes. Where I'd say this is going to be like polishing a turd.
Well, in the beginning, we were stretching to get some people in there.
Yeah, well, we were nobody.
We had nothing.
We had no presence. Hey, you want to come on a new podcast? I didn't even tell anybody I was doing it for the longest time. Guy at work, I'm sitting down with him. He's a good friend of mine. We're sitting talking, and he says, you should do a podcast. And I said, well, actually, I do. I'm about 15 episodes in. I didn't tell anybody because it's, now I'm much more proud of the work we produce out of here. But back then, I don't think I was I think I was very shy when it came to that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people just to get listeners and,
Yeah, of course. You got to get the word out.
I mean,
well, there's all sorts of different methodologies to get the word out.
I'm not saying that I'm not proud that I do this, but it's not like, oh yeah, I do a podcast. It's hey, you want to listen to my podcast? It's helping out a lot of people.
Right.
If you hear someone that, for some reason, people just wind up knowing you're an ex-cop and they want to tell you their stories. It happens all the time.
For you, getting back to that podcast remorse, guest remorse, when I called you, and I was going through my phone, and I'm like, I needed guests, and then I came across your number, and at that time I had left group because I had to get. That was my own little personal struggle. There was some shit going on, and I just had to separate from group. I called you, and I said, "Hey, listen, Mike, I do this podcast." You had told me you'd done a podcast, Zoom, a telephone, or
telephone with Jose Medina.
Right. So, what did you think? What were your thoughts? I don't think we ever talked about this.
Well, I mean, my first foray into it, like I said, was with Jose, and he does a great podcast. Don't get me wrong, but it was over the phone.
Yeah,
it was just I had to get in my car, go somewhere where I had good reception on my phone, so it wouldn't cut in, and because I was living in my basement at that point, pretty much, and I didn't get great reception, so I had to go sit in my car. First time I did it, I had it on speaker because I just didn't feel like having the phone up to my ear the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
We did the whole interview on speakerphone. He called me up right after and said, "Yeah, it didn't really come out." He said, "We're gonna have to do it again tomorrow."
DOC TV.
yeah, exactly.
That was one of the episodes we did down in Florida where I recorded a half an hour.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, we got to do it again." I'm like, "Come on, man! I got to tell this twice."
That put us back. We were leaving to go to the West Coast at like midnight.
Yeah, no, we get no. Actually, we got done. We were supposed to be there at 3, and then he pushed it back to 7. And by the time we were done, it was 10 o'clock. We hit the road and don't get into our location till 1 o'clock in the morning. But your specific thoughts, they're like, "Who's this jerk off?" I know you did it. I know why. I know you did it because I'm a friend.
Oh yeah, first and foremost.
Right.
First and foremost. I mean, I had no idea what the podcast was all about.
Did you want to do it? Did you just do it because of friendship?
Mainly because of friendship.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what I was getting into. I just thought it would be a cool idea. Get in front of a couple mics and talk about my story, and if my story helped people out, then it helped people out. I didn't. It's not like
And you had Mackie with you that day. It's the first day I met Mackie.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sat in the corner, like quiet as a church mouse. I tried to involve her. I'm like, "Hey, I'll set up I had plenty of microphones. I'm like, "Hey, I'll set up a microphone for you." And so he's still busting my balls about the clothespins.
Clothespins.
I would take pictures during the podcast to put on social media, and I made these lecterns so your head would stay up, and you wouldn't dip your chin because it changes your voice.
I still got the pictures of that on my phone.
Yeah, and Mike's sitting there reading, and there's the paper clip because that was how you held the outline up. I always gave the guests the outline just so they could follow along. And but as the episode moved on, what was going on? What did you feel?
It was just it was almost a sense of relief, because aside from attorneys and giving your statement to the police, I never really went in depth about my story. You tell people,
probably wrote it down a couple times.
Yeah. I have books and notes at home somewhere, or I just sit down and I'd start writing things down, but I never openly talked about it, and as we were going, it just, I was a little hesitant at first.
Yeah.
Because
it's tough to bare your soul.
Yeah.
With no one. And at that time, listen, maybe we got 75 downloads. Yeah. So you're still telling it to 75
people.
Right.
Yeah. And and it's not showing weakness, but you almost don't want to show weakness. Because in the beginning, when I talked about it, I still go up to the Bergen County Police Academy and talk to recruit classes about it. I still tear up in front of the recruit class.
You teared up a couple times in that episode.
Oh, yeah.
You teared up, but it was.
And you don't want to put yourself out there like, you don't want to look like a pussy, but it's an emotional thing.
So I encouraged when Charlie Cifarelli, our podcast was the first show that he had went on. And his episode did fairly well. I think he got, I want to say 300 views or something like that. And it was good. It was real good. And he was a little downtrodden because 300 doesn't sound like a lot. But with audio, it's different. People usually listen to the listen times much longer. People were listening to the whole episode. I said, Charlie, and it was an hour episode. And I said, Charlie, do you understand that you had 3,000 hours or 300 hours?
Yeah, 300 hours of listen.
Of people investing their time in your story. It's a humbling experience. Now he's got a reel up there that's got 5 million views.
But, it's funny. We talked about it when we had Charlie in here. We took the picture of Charlie the day in your studio in the basement where he was all slumped over and
he's just downtrodden.
He's just such a vibrant person now, and he accepted it. And he's become like a podcast megastar now.
So it was nice because his release and your release on episode 9, the release of all that pent up just darkness. And so in your episode, specifically that release of the darkness, getting all that stuff out, and you leave there and you feel like shit for a couple of days.
The ride home wasn't, I mean, it was very relaxing to get it off you, but now your head's spinning.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're reliving the whole situation again.
Right.
And that's
that's part of the suffering.
Yeah.
That's the suffering, and you held that what you felt was held inside for at that time. So it was February 13th, 2021. Your shooting was September 16th,
2014.
All right. So you held that in for 7 years almost. And then, so I don't know about you, but taking a couple hours or even a couple days where you're feeling like shit is better than holding it in for 7 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without doubt.
When I talk to people about this show, it's all about letting that stuff out, letting that out. But we had this in our episode. Because we knew each other, we had a prior relationship. We were in group together. I knew your brother for a very long time.
We had a camaraderie.
We had an ebb and flow.
Yeah,
we had an ebb and flow. When the worst thing for any of these shows is dead air. It's death. We recorded an episode last night and there was dead air, and you're just like, oh shit. But there was no dead air. The conversation flowed.
Just kept moving. Because it was two friends getting together talking.
Right.
Two friends that have been through similar situations. So I knew that you knew how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And
because I felt the same thing when I recorded
when you did your shooting episode.
So the only
by
reason
yourself.
The only reason I did that by myself is because I had no episode that week because my partner bailed on me.
That was supposed to be the marriage episode.
That was supposed to be the marriage episode, right? And which I've never done the marriage episode. I'd love to do it in the future. I have it all written out and everything.
Count me out of that one.
We'll get Mackie a ring and we'll get that. We'll get that going.
No, that can't happen.
Let's get health benefits. Come on.
No. La.
If you ever did that, bro, I'd kick you right in the nuts. I would. I would just like field goal kick you right in the nuts.
Not happen.
But that's what it was like for me. So I recorded that Saturday that he bailed on me. So I was just like, let me get it out there. Let me do it. And I think I went into my office at work, and just so I could have a quiet place, I wrote some notes, went back, recorded it, edited it. And I did
your bosses don't listen to the show, do they?
No.
Okay, good.
No. But that, I felt like shit. I had it all written down like you did, and I felt like shit the next couple days. And but then I just felt this, this nice relief.
Listen, like you said, the armor.
Hashtag episode 9, hashtag armor, hashtag
prairie
keep suffering,
fire.
Prairie fire.
We could do a show just on hashtags.
The hashtags, the suffering of hashtags. That's a good one. But I went, so here's, and you've heard this before, but let me tell our audience. So the way I used to do it is I used to go sit in my garage because it's a quiet spot. And I'd have my computer there. I'd put headphones on, and I'd go through the episodes. I'd take out all the ums and the ahs. It's much better than being on video because you have much more control over the editing process.
I actually sounded good back then.
It was nice because, people are like, I sounded really good. I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. That's the magic of editing. And I sat down and I'm going through it. And how I did it back then was I took out the ums and ahs, and then I went back and listened to the whole episode for continuity. And by the second time I went through it, I remember calling you. And I said, hey, Mike, we got something.
Yeah.
This is
something.
something.
That was like your exact words. I think it was, we really got something here.
We really got something here. It was like a really, riveting episode where even though I was in the studio recording it, I couldn't stop listening to it. And I think there was a long stretch of time. You had 333 downloads in the first week, because that's how I judged everything. And that was
that's what we used to base it off of, right?
Yeah.
Your first 7 days.
Your first 7 days, and you had 333 downloads. And for us, that was like holy shit, we just quadrupled or tripled our
Just hit the mother load.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit, this is something really good. And I sent it to you. I think I sent it to you. I said, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this. And normally what I would do is I would air them on very early Monday mornings. That one, I said, I can't wait. This has got to go out Sunday. And that's why to this day, our audio comes out Sunday at 4 a.m. And for everybody out there, the reason that it comes out 4 a.m. because sometimes it takes a couple hours to upload to certain platforms, like Google takes a long time. So I figure if I do it Sunday morning, by Monday morning drive time, it'll be up everywhere. And now it's just habit. That's how it's done.
Yeah, it was really a life-changing day that day.
What was, when you got that phone call, what was inside of you in that time?
When you said we really got something?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I hadn't even listened to the episode yet. You know, and when you're going through it, and we just talked about this before, when you're going through it, you really don't realize what's going on.
No.
You know, you don't really grasp the whole content of what we're saying until you listen to it on your own.
How many guests we get in here? We record an hour and they're like, wow, the hour's up. Yeah. Every single one of them.
Happened last night.
Every single one of them will say the same, wow, an hour's up.
Yeah.
I would say that was the same with you. I mean, sometimes we do a little bit more than an hour when we were on audio. It was a little different.
I think mine was an hour and 9 minutes.
Not that you listened to it.
Not that I listened to it 300 times.
Mike
I listened to it 333 times in the first week.
He could actually recite every word verbatim. Let me read the intro, and I'm going to try to do this without my glasses. So the original, if you go back and listen to episode 9, it says, it's an odd person who's willing to put their life on the line for others that they do not know and may not even want them to do so. It's a life sacrifice. It's a life of selflessness. It's a life of suffering. You walk out the door one morning, one person, and an unusual or an extraordinary event happens. You come home. If you're lucky enough to come home, another entirely different person. A person whom your family and friends don't recognize anymore. You're injured, although no wound is visible. You're in pain, but you're not sure where. You've changed, but you're not sure how. You're left to deal with the overwhelming darkness all alone, or so you think. There are others out there. We can help. None of us are as strong as all of us. And in last night's episode, one of the episodes we recently did.
I got chills when you just read that, though.
One of the episodes that I just did, because none of us are as strong as all of us. You'll hear me use that a lot. Yeah. There's a reason for that. When I was in college and played college football, we had a coach. His name was Wade Watkins. In the off season, he catches spinal meningitis. The guy was like 23 years old. He was I think maybe he was 29. He's a young guy. Gets spinal meningitis. So we had to all go get tested, make sure we didn't have it. And he ends up dying 3 days later. Wow. Next season, and I still have the shirt. It's Win Wade's War, and on the back it says, "None of us are as strong as all of us." And it always struck me, and it's something I've been out of college now for 26 years, 27 years, something like that.
You old fuck.
Yeah, and I will never forget that phrase, and you'll hear me use it frequently because there's certain things that stick in your head.
It's so true, though.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, you're not going to take down a whole army by yourself.
Right. Which is the importance of having a partner in any walk of life. Somebody that you can bounce ideas off of. Somebody that you can have your opinions checked and verified or negated.
Well, there's a lot of things that we put our heads together on for this. You know, I mean, you listen, I say it all the time. You run the whole thing. I'm just here because I'm good looking.
Bad choice, people. Bad choice.
But there are certain things. I mean, we throw ideas at each other all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, what do you think it is? And I'll tell you straight up if I don't think it's a good idea.
What do you think the strangest idea we ever had was? Suffering of anal warts?
No,
A little person?
I was going to say a little person, but that turned out fantastic.
That was great.
That was great. Scott is one of the best people that. I mean, again, getting back to favorite episodes, could have been one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah,
But
it was so much fun.
We were talking about getting a stripper.
Actually, we got one. We got one coming in.
Yeah, I know.
But it's not the stripper you think.
We kept saying, and again, we were doing this in your basement back then.
Oh, God.
We were like, how could we get a stripper past your wife and past Mandy down into the basement?
Now, with this guy coming in, we could have done it.
Yeah, exactly.
We could have done it because he's interested in nobody in that house. Nobody has the right equipment for him. And he's a pretty interesting guy. We're still in the works on that one, so I'm not going to mention his name. But
yeah, I mean, there's just so many crazy ideas we came up with.
Yeah. And we get ideas from the audience all the time.
Oh, yeah.
People say, this person's got a story. This person's got a story. I just heard one today.
And we get requests all the time.
Right.
You should talk to this one. You should talk to that. I mean, look, we had Mike DePalma in. How many people has Mike DePalma given us?
Oh, my gosh.
We had Stewie.
We
have one that's coming up that we're not going to mention.
We have Butchie, Benny.
Butchie and Benny. Benny Love.
Well, in an off way, you got Crudell in here, which I'm still kind of mad at you. Listen, my life is no fuller for knowing him.
Listen, one of my best friends from childhood. You leave Bobby alone.
Bobby, I love you.
And if it wasn't for Bobby, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now, but we'll leave it at that.
Because what, did he introduce you?
Yeah.
Oh, God, and you're still friends with him.
Yeah.
That's something to hold a grudge on. But there's some strange ideas that get thrown at us, but there's also some guests that say, hey, listen, I stubbed my toe. I'm being facetious, obviously. I stubbed my toe. I think I'd be good for your podcast.
Yeah.
And
you have to weigh some of them out.
Yeah. I mean, we don't really heavily vet our guests, which have bit us before. It's bit us before. At the same time, it's not our story to tell, and it's not our story to verify.
We say it all the time. We're getting their version of their suffering.
Yeah.
It's not our job to vet people and find out the history of the story and find out if it's true. This is your version of what happened to you.
Right.
Nobody else's version. Now, if someone goes against that version, why don't we can get that person in? You tell your side of it.
There's nothing wrong with having opposing views. That's what makes the world go round.
I'm not going to bring up names, but we had someone on the show, and someone contacted you and said that person is an outright liar. It never happened like that, and they're full of shit and all that stuff. Why don't you come up and tell your side of the story?
But here's the thing about that. So in your shooting in particular, the guy that was in the passenger seat who lived but eventually died, he has a different version of events than you.
Well, before he died, he had 16 different versions of the events.
So
he told the state police everything that happened that night. They carjacked a vehicle earlier that day. They were in North Arlington trying to break into cars. Lady comes out. They made a pact. Him and the driver made a pact to do whatever they had to do to get away. Once, and he outright said this. They made a pact they were going to do anything they had to do to get away. Carjacked the vehicle earlier in the day. They were breaking into cars. Lady came out and scared them away. Led the police on a pursuit. I knew there was a stolen gun in the car, so as soon as we crashed, he said, I reclined the seat back. Mm-hmm. He said, and then the cops came up on our side. He said the driver was reaching for the gun, and the cops shot him before he shot them.
But if we had that guy sitting in your chair right now, he would have a different chain of events than you.
Oh, he went to jail that night and had a whole different chain of events.
Correct.
In jail.
So that's the point with this particular guest who somebody reached out to us and said they weren't genuine. Neither of them are wrong. It's perception. It's all perception.
I had a teacher when I was younger in grammar school, and he said, if I take this tennis ball and throw it right into that corner, right, I want everybody to write down what happened with that tennis ball. Mm-hmm. It hit this wall, hit that wall, bounced on the floor 3 times, bounced on the floor. Everybody had a different everybody had something different to say about that. Yeah. Well, it hit the wall on the right first, then it hit the wall on the left, and then it came down, it hit the radiator, and then it hit the floor, bounced 4 times. People were saying it hit the wall on the right, hit the wall on the left, hit this, hit that. Everybody is different. You could watch this same exact event, and you'll have a different perspective on it than I do.
Have you ever gotten guff for having us having a certain guest in? A little bit of flack.
I haven't, but I know we have.
Yeah, we
How could, being ex-cops, how could you have someone like that in there?
Yeah. And I'll say it. It's because I've already talked to him about it. It's Mike Dowd.
Yeah.
We got a lot of shit for having Mike Dowd in there, but we would be hypocritical in order to get people's stories out and not hear both sides.
Yeah. Listen, what he did, and he admits he's wrong.
Yeah.
We say it all the time. The first time we met him, he came right up to us. He said, "How you doing? I'm Mike Dowd. I'm the dirtiest cop in New York City history." He owned up to it. And he had a suffering story.
We've had true blue criminals, and we've sat in front of true blue criminals. And I'm way more mad at, and I'm not mad at them, but I'm way more disappointed, which is worse.
Just like Grandfather, I'm disappointed
in you. I'm way more disappointed in Mike than a criminal, even though they may have done the same thing. Because a criminal, that's the game.
Yeah.
That's the game. You're on that side of the battlefield. I'm on this side of the battlefield. And hey, we retired, so let's meet in the middle. But you were on our side of the battlefield and you turned. Yeah. So that bothered me.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. I mean, that's one of the ones, like I said before, was there an episode that you were like, I can't believe we got to do this today?
No, see, with that one, no.
But going up that day, I'm like, do we really want to talk to a dirty cop?
How's this going to play out?
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked to, what about Dante Gordon? He went to jail. He was a cop. But his was an unfortunate set of circumstances.
He reached out to me on WhatsApp.
Yeah, he's in Panama right now. He's doing rescue dogs.
Oh yeah, is he really?
Yeah.
He's over there with his mother?
He might be.
Oh, that's
might be. Yeah, his mother does live there.
Yeah.
We always wish Dante all the best.
Hey, I have nothing against Dante. He's
now
he's one of us.
Getting back to episode 9, what is, you're always looking to see why things work so well. Why did ours work so well? I mean, after the episode, yes, it was two friends sitting down talking. There was something it was an unspoken thing. Like I said, dead air is the worst thing in the world. So having a partner who can pick up the slack when there's a little bit of dead air, so important. That's what I see. Yeah,
I mean, during episode 9, it really wasn't that because I wasn't a partner. It was just me and you talking. But since then we've come a long way where we could almost read each other. And that I'm the idiot that interjects the jokes at primarily the wrong times.
Boy Scout. Hashtag Boy Scout.
So Clark was going to kill me. But I could feel the tension in the room at times.
Yeah. Was that your most embarrassing moment on the show? So for those of you who don't know, Mike made an inappropriate comment about Boy Scouts.
It was really inappropriate. It was just a joke. The
timing was a little off. The timing was a little off. But
no. It was bad. It was just this week when Amanda, there's a certain place in hell for those people. I go, yeah, Ireland. I felt so bad. I'm like, the Irish people are going to, and I work in an Irish bar.
It wasn't like she was an import. She's got to go back.
That one I felt bad about.
For me, probably one of the most embarrassing moments was Artie Dell.
Oh yeah.
When he gets raped as a young boy and he's on a bus and a guy hits on him and I said, was it the jeans you were wearing or something like that? And then I made the priest comment, which again, I did catch some flack about the priest comment. But hey, listen, they didn't touch me, so I'm still kind of hurt about that.
Jealous.
I am. I'm a little jealous of it. But you spoke. I know after episode 9, you spoke to a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
you handed it out. What was their reaction?
First and foremost, going off my family's reaction, because I never detailed to my brother and my father what actually happened.
Your brother Frank actually reached out to me and goes, I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, they knew what happened, but they didn't know the details and they didn't know the after effects of it. The sleepless nights, like I said, and I always said I was never suicidal, but there's plenty of nights I went to sleep saying, if I don't wake up tomorrow morning, it's probably not a bad thing. They never knew that side of it because you put on that happy-go-lucky face and just keep going about your day, and then when you're by yourself in those closed quarters and in that dark room and you dig back down into your dark hole, it's a deep hole and it's hard to get out of. And the problem with being in that hole sometimes is, and you notice, sometimes you get comfortable in there. It's like wallowing in your own misery. You get so comfortable being in that deep, dark place that you don't want to get out of it. Like I said the one time, resisting success.
Yeah.
You don't want things to get better. You're so deep, you don't want things to get better.
That's depression.
Yeah.
That's depression. It's that thinking about the past constantly.
Yeah.
And once you're in there, man, is it hard. So somebody once described depression to me like wading in a babbling brook with a heavy current and walking against the current, chest high, and the water just keeps rising and rising. Well, meanwhile, you got people on the sides and the banks just saying, "Hey, just step out of the water."
Step out.
Like, that's easier said than done. So you get stuck in that fighting against the current constantly. But those people, I know, because getting back to the point, those people, I used to send the podcast out to everybody I knew.
Yeah.
And people had gotten back to me and said, you guys are good together. Like it's you bounce off each other. It was never a dull moment in there. And I got those comments. So it was a big win. It was a big win. So,
because you never know what we're getting into.
Right.
Like I said, after we do an episode, I don't know how it went. I mean, there are times I'll call you on the way home and say, Kev, I think that went good.
There's a couple episodes where when they were done, I'm like, yeah, there's something there.
Yeah.
There was yours. It was the first one. Artie Dell's, Gene Halberger, and Derek Taylor, Clark Fredericks, Amanda, Pastor Ron Lewis. I walked out Pastor Ron Lewis, and I talked to him outside for a minute. I'm like, yeah, that was a good one.
Well, I mean, even getting back to Dante. What he went through, I mean, that was crazy.
Dante's episode did really well, too. It did really well. And, his family members from all over the globe reached out to me.
I know they did.
Yeah, they reached out to me, and it was an interesting thing. Sometimes to the detriment. Now, it comes a point where I need a co-host. Like, at this point, I know I need a co-host. I could do it alone, and it would be okay. But it wouldn't be
as fun.
It would be hollow.
Yeah, well, I mean, even after I came on as your co-host, after I had the neck surgery and I came down with pneumonia.
I had the healing team in, yeah.
Yeah, the 23rd Hour Angels.
Right. That was better because there was
because there was four of them.
There was three of them there and me, so it took up a lot of slack. But one-on-one, and I did a couple of those one-on-ones. They're tough.
Yeah, that's the day I went to the hospital with pneumonia.
I mean, again, it was on audio. Yeah. So there was a couple that I did one-on-one. I did Jay Aponte, who I bullied the shit out of in school, and I always felt bad for it. It was me and him one-on-one.
See, I think I was a co-host. What episode was that, though? Because I was part of the podcast at that point, but I didn't make it up for that for some reason.
I think I want to say that was episode 13. That was a really important one to me. There were some times in there where, especially that episode, it was very pivotal. Like I could have used a co-host in there because it was very uncomfortable for me.
I'm sure it was.
And this was a guy.
I'm sure when that doorbell rang when he showed up, you were very uncomfortable.
I was. I gave him a big hug and everything. But when this kid was 12 years old, I made his life hell. And when he left school and I couldn't find him for so many years, I had a real mental hard time with that. So sitting there across from him. Now again, we were on audio, so I had the power of editing where I took out a lot of dead space there because I was like, oh, shit, like, what do I say now? Hey, listen, I'm sorry. I kicked you in the ass walking down the hall.
I wish I was there that day. I would have said, Jay, I'm going to hold his hands behind his back. You punch him right in the face as hard as you can.
Well, so
get it all out now.
Jay in particular, and I tell him this to his face. I'm like, you motherfucker, man. You motherfucker. And I'll tell you why you're a motherfucker.
He didn't give you satisfaction.
No, because I wanted him to be mad at me.
Exactly. So because you would have been satisfied that.
Right. And I remember the first conversation we had. He's like, bro, I forgive you, man. We were kids. I was like, son of a, can't you just be mad at me or something?
It's not going to be great content for the show for friends.
Yeah, I know. We're not. But it turns out he's a cop.
Yeah.
He's a cop, and he's been to a couple events of ours, and he's supported us along the way. He's still, I still talk to him.
He came to Hackensack Brewing Company.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Yes, he did.
You got to reach out and let him know about Grand Saloon.
Oh, yeah, I want him at Grand Saloon. Yeah. I want him and his family at Grand Saloon because I still haven't met his family yet. He's got 2 beautiful daughters, and he's got a son, his wife. So, I've become friends. But the thing that pissed me off about that episode is I wasted 30 years. And that's part of that suffering is I wasted 30 plus years, 35 years of somebody who I could have been really good friends with. And it turns out I have a lot in common with. We went out to dinner after the show and we sat there and we talked about old times and this person and who gave him a hard time and who didn't give him a hard time. And some of my high school friends listened to that and they knew how I treated him. Yeah. I bet you when they were looking through that or I sent that out to them, they're like, oh, shit. But, that was one of my prouder moments on the show that I was able to overcome that because that was a big roadblock for me.
All right. I was going to say, what's something that you miss about
having my Saturdays free?
The studio in your basement. Yeah, something you miss about having that studio, aside from not having to travel.
Yeah, so the travel time was great. I enjoyed my prep for the show. My prep for the show was almost routine. I would go to the gym in the morning. We record usually around 12 o'clock. I would go to the gym in the morning. I would come home, have a cup of coffee, and then I'd go get breakfast. And sometimes you join me for breakfast.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I miss probably the most about that, aside from Mandy, is me and you used to go out, get breakfast, and sit around the table and bullshit.
You're right, and catch up on the week, and it would be a good idea. Hey, listen, I got this guy, and we just have a little production meeting. But
that was our production meeting, sitting over at a bagel place over breakfast,
and it was wonderful. It was wonderful, and we went downstairs, waited for the guests. Sometimes the guest was, that's the one thing different about a studio here versus in my house. The guests are usually on time here, usually. And in the studio, because when it's in your house, they're like, it's his house. It's no big deal.
And it looks a little more professional when they're coming to a studio now.
Right.
Hey, we're doing a podcast,
Well, they understand.
We got a real big podcast. We're doing well now. We're getting 25,000 listeners a week. Come to my basement and do it.
Right. And they're not going to respect it as much because it's your studio. You're not paying for studio time, so it's okay if I'm late. I mean, we have one of our guests, and it's a very good friend of ours who woke up the time we were supposed to record, and you know exactly who that is.
I know where you're going.
I go, son of a gun.
Yeah.
But that's the stuff that this unfortunate. I still love it, but there are some unfortunate things of this business.
Yeah, listen, everything isn't going to be peaches and cream.
No.
Sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, it's.
You know what else I missed too? Your Rocky poster. We got to get that for up here.
We can get that in here. I had flags. If you just go through my old social media posts, you'll see pictures of the old studio. I had flags up, and Mike busted my balls about it. So I put these flags up. I'm so proud.
You were so proud of it. I was just going to get to that.
I had black curtains up. This studio was not that far removed from what my studio looked like in my house. But I had these black curtains with flags hanging down, podcast flags. I had the big banner up against the wall, and it looked good.
It looked real good.
And the shitty thing is these lights you see on the ground, they were like the last piece of the puzzle that I always wanted to get. I finally get them, and we move.
Yeah.
And we move. So we brought them over here to the studio. But
you hung all the flags.
I hung all the flags backwards.
And took a picture of it.
Yeah. And say, hey, look how proud I am. Oh, they're backwards, dickhead.
I said, looks real good, but they're backwards. It's field front. You just text me back like, motherfucker.
I was like, motherfucker. I had to fucking take them off and put them all back on. It was just a pain in the ass.
The funny thing is, too, you said, the thing I was most pissed off about was, he goes, you were right. Yes, I was right.
You were 100% right. Because I took them out of the package, hung them up. That's all I did. But we also had, in some of our earliest sponsors, I think we should throw a shout out to some of our earliest sponsors. Caffeine has been with us from the very beginning.
With us from the beginning.
Psy Cigars.
Psy Cigars, the muffin.
Oh, Performance Muffins. Angela.
That's another funny story.
Oh, who had the Performance Muffin? Was it Adam? Bert? So Performance Muffins are wonderful.
Yeah.
They're gluten free and they're very, very tasty. But you got to heat them up in a microwave.
Heat them up, yeah.
You got to heat them up in a microwave. That's the trick to them. And Adam took one.
Yeah.
And he's eating. He goes, bro, I couldn't chew. I couldn't. My mouth just dried up.
But if you remember, after one of the shows, we were in your kitchen. We were talking to your wife, and she's like, I got these Performance Muffins. You want one? And I was starving. I don't think we ate that morning. So I was starving. So I'm eating a muffin on the way home. And, of course, it wasn't heated up. So I'm eating it on the way home. And I call you. I said, Kev, I got to tell you something. And you're like, oh, no, what? And I said, your wife's muffin tastes great. You go, Jesus Christ, I thought you were quitting the podcast.
That's exactly right.
But
So-
see, that's the friendship that we have is we can say shit like that to each other.
Yeah, it gets a little dark sometimes. It gets a little dark. But your first episode as a co-host was Tommy Wall.
Tommy Wall.
The suffering of a
Landscaper, small business
owner. And how did that feel? How long did it take you to get your bearings?
You know, and we tell everybody, you forget after a little while that the mics are even in front of you. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I caught myself, and when you brought me in to interview me, it was different. But the first time that I was sitting there and actually like had to ask questions, you know, we always have the question list, but we don't go off of that list.
Not all the time.
So that I felt a little pressure to like interject a question somewhere, you know, to be part of it and to try to, you know.
It has to be dynamic. It has to be.
Like with us too, and we have to guide people. You know, once you do that great too. Once you see it going a different way, we have to interject something to bring it back on track. And that's the one that's when I realized during the small business episode of how we have to like wrangle these people, get them back on the course to where we're going.
The hardest thing that I ever learned in podcasting was how to listen. It's easy to, hey, just a little, there's a list over here of stuff that we're going to talk about today. And, you know, not to be robotic. It's like, did anybody speak to you the same way you feel about the connection? It's, you have to ask it in a conversational way, but you also have to listen to what they're saying, and something may jump out.
But see, that's the thing with having a co-host too, because I could tell, like, not when you're zoning out, but when you got something on your mind, like you write down all things, you know, and when I see that pen go to the paper, I know that you're not totally focused on what someone's saying. So that's when I have to perk up, and generally I'll ask the next question after that. It's because you're, like I said, you're not zoning out, but you're concentrating on writing something down for later in the show.
Right, because so when we do the endings of the shows.
What we learned today.
Yeah, what did we learn today? That is done on the fly. And sometimes I get into the story and I forget. Yeah. I'm like, oh, and halfway through, I'm like, shit, I'm not writing anything down.
That's why I see when you start writing stuff, that's when I know, you know, to actually step up and try to say something.
But it becomes a talent. You know, it becomes a learned talent.
I don't know if we could be considered talent at all.
Well, it
becomes a behavior.
the talent of it is to know how to guide that conversation, because many podcasters start their thing like, well, I'm a great conversationalist. Yeah, but try carrying on a conversation for an hour or 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not interview and interrogation.
No, it's difficult sometimes, and make it entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
At the end of the day, you want to entertain people. You want to wake them up, but you want to entertain them.
Yeah. We're not doing it for the money.
Maybe someday we are.
Yeah.
Now, that first episode, was it eye-opening? Was it something that you felt that, okay, it's not beyond my realm, or it's something I can learn?
It's definitely something I can learn. You know, I'm not afraid to jump into anything. You know, and like I said, you make it easy. You're the interviewer. You know, you're the one, and you and I'd say all the time, you do all the prep work. Yeah, without a doubt. 100%. Kevin does all the prep work for the show. He does everything. I just show up, and it's easy on me. And I'd like to do more, but you're
control freak.
You're like the micromanager.
I do micromanage.
You have to do everything yourself.
Well, so there's credence to that. There is credence to that. My whole life, I could never rely on anybody.
Yeah.
My whole life. That's the way I've had to live my life. If I wanted something done, I had to do it myself. So it's a learned behavior for me. And, you know, throughout.
And you don't feel comfortable having someone do something. You know, like I said, in law enforcement, if there was a job to be done, I had to do it.
If I give a job away, it means I don't care about the job.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the truth. And it's overwhelming to me sometimes.
I'm sure it is.
Like I had to take a day off work the other day because I was just so overwhelmed with so many different things going on in my life that I just had to sit and just be quiet. It's a rarity because I go 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And but then it comes time to record. And I can relax when I'm in here. Leading up to it, getting here, getting the Instagram lives going and making sure everything's done. My fun time is when I get to sit down.
And that's another thing too, is the Instagram live is primarily new to us.
Yeah.
We never did anything like that when we were in your studio.
I've learned a lot along the way. So with this show and being on the shows that we've done, every studio I've gone in, I've looked around. And I've looked at the way they do things and how they post their social media, and some people have taught me along the way. Your brother Frank, he's real big into Instagram Live. He'd been pushing me to do Instagram Lives for a long time. I'm like, I really don't want to.
For what?
I really don't want to, but there is value to it.
Oh, yeah, without doubt.
There is.
Hey, listen, we only do it for a couple minutes, but that's fun.
Yeah, it is.
You know, reading the comments on there, we have a lot of friends that chime in. And, I really wish we could have like a call-in show here.
Well,
I think that would be fun.
Those Instagram Lives, out of any social media post that we do, they get the most views.
Yeah.
So people, I guess that's content that they want to see. I mean, that's telling. You got to look at the analytics.
And it's funny too, because there's a lot of inside jokes that come up on there.
Yeah.
Tommy saying like Frank's Hot Corner. Frank's Hot Corner is when we go to lunch, we sit in the corner of the counter, and the counter guy's name is Frank, so we call it Frank's Hot Corner. There's really nothing to it.
Sounds like a sexual act. I'm going to give Mike a Frank's Hot Corner this week.
Well, Hot Corner is third base.
Okay.
So we just call it the Hot Corner. So that's what that whole. But anyway, let's get back to other studios we've been in.
Oh, geez. So
Matt Cox.
So Matt Cox, that was in his house, and you shit in his house. So for those of you who don't know who Matt Cox is, Matt Cox did 12 years in prison. He was at one time #1 most wanted on the FBI's list
mortgage fraud.
For mortgage fraud. He
frauded the mortgage companies out of $50 million.
They don't know how much. They don't know how much. And he does Matt Cox podcast down in Florida, and we went down there. We're in his house. I remember walking. Here's a funny story. I remember going into his bathroom, and he had toilet paper up on a shelf.
You knocked it in the toilet.
I hit it, and it went, sorry, Matt, if you're listening to this.
Kevin's the one who knocked it.
I did. The toilet paper went right in there. I pulled it out. Thank God there was nothing in there.
I remember that.
I pull it out, and I throw it right in the garbage can. And then we went to Josh from DOC TV.
Yeah, and then we did Tommy.
And then we went cross state, MSCS. Then we did we did the
John
Elite
and,
the Elite show.
And Dowd in Tommy's studio.
Yeah, and then we did
then
MSCS.
We did Tommy.
Then we did Lynn and Will.
Oh yeah,
Lynn and Will, the live one.
Yeah, it was the only nice day we had in Florida that day too. That morning,
we were pretty much shot by then. We hadn't slept the night before. That was the day we traveled cross country.
The day after, yeah.
Yeah. We were supposed to do one more down there, but it's podcasters. Some of them aren't the most upstanding individuals in the world.
The DOC TV. I mean, that was individual for both of us. Yeah, I thought he was going to bring us both in, but
that's kind of the reason we went down there together.
And mine never aired.
Yeah, it's poor Mike.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, so we go in there one at a time, and apparently Josh was having some marital problems.
Allegedly.
Yeah, and mine aired, and the second part was going to air, and it just never aired. There's footage of you, and there's some footage of me because I've done shows like Zoom shows that have never aired. I don't know where they go.
Shit in that house too.
Mike shit in every place we went in Florida. Every single house. It was like he had something wrong with him.
We stopped at a Walmart. I got something in the bathroom too.
Oh God!
I mean, we ate good down there too. We
had a great time with Chantel.
That was a great time down there. God. And that's another one we didn't bring in. We talked about old sponsors, Belladama Cigars.
Belladama Cigars.
I mean, that was out of the blue. That came on what was it, like an Instagram Live with my brother?
Yeah, we just connected through Instagram Live, right?
And then that's when she told us. She said,
"You were outside of a bar."
We never met her before.
No, she picked us up at the airport,
and she said to us that day, she said, "I really like what you guys are doing. I'm going to give you 10% of my proceeds."
So we just started plugging the hell
just
out
like
of her.
That. Yeah. I mean, that's the type of people and the friends that we've made. I mean, Chantel, she opened her house to us.
Right.
And then she got us the Airbnb over in West Palm.
West Palm. Which, mind you, not all of West Palm is nice.
Yeah. We were right on the outskirts of not nice.
Yeah, so we were in the not nice area.
Exactly.
And Mike and I, we step out, we get in real late, There's nobody on the street when we get in. We get in super late, and we wake up in the morning, and I'm calling my wife. He's calling Mac. I guess you were calling Mackie. And we both come in together. I'm like, I don't think this is a nice area.
But listen, and
nobody bothered us.
No, not at all.
Nobody bothered us.
It was run down. When you think of West Palm, you think of these beautiful houses, all that stuff.
But the people were nice. So
but when we did go over to Tommy's studio,
that's the ultra rich section,
and the place we went out to dinner that night.
Oh, right on the ocean. That was beautiful. Yeah. That was beautiful. But I've been in Trend of Fire with Julian Dory. That's in South Jersey. I've been in Soft White Underbelly, which they filmed. So originally, Soft White Underbelly invited me to come out to L.A. And Charlie Cifarelli, Mike Dowd, and John Elite, they all did Soft White Underbelly in L.A. And they had told me they filmed right on Skid Row.
Yeah.
And the door's here, and Skid Row is right there. You have addicts walking in and out.
I hear a lot of LA is Skid Row now too.
Yeah. Well, this is like traditional Skid Row, so this is the worst of the worst. And I didn't want to go out to LA. And listen, he offered to fly me out. Okay, but I didn't want to go out to LA. So he says, you know what? I'm coming to New York, and I went in. I filmed that in New York. I recently did one with Sean Atwood. That was a Zoom one though.
The Kozo show too.
I did Joe Kozo. That was the first show I went on.
Yeah. That
was the first show, and I'm thankful that Joe put me on. That's all I'll say about that. Just thankful. So there's every studio I steal from. Like I don't physically steal. I don't physically
Take
steal.
a microphone from this one.
Right. It's a souvenir. But I'm looking at the way they're doing things. I'm looking at where the cameras are set up, how the lighting is, how the questions are presented. What do they use? Do they use outlines like we use? Most people use the iPad.
Yeah.
Which I'm not a huge fan of. I still like pen. I put pen to paper. Even when I do the shows, even when I do the outlines, it's always pen to paper because there's a connection there to me.
I think one of the nicest studios we're in, the nicest setup was probably Tommy's.
Tommy's was really nice. He had top notch everything.
Matt Cox was nice. It was in his house though. Tommy had the nice setup in the studio. It was a big studio. Mm. That was a fun one.
The nicest. Well, Soft White Underbelly, which is a very, very large show. I was in a hotel room, and there's just curtains behind you.
Yeah.
You're in a hotel room. The cameras he was using, I know those lenses probably cost about $10,000. Huh. I know, because he's a photographer. Even Trend of Fire. Trend of Fire it was in his house, but it was a nice setup. It was a little warm in there. I wore like a nice shirt, and I had pit stains and stuff. It was disgusting. But everybody does a little bit different. Everybody asks questions a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's some people who they kind of know where they're going. They don't sort of put an outline together. I don't think I could work like that. I know well, no, Tommy did his research. I know Tommy did his research. Tommy
did his research because he was like, I see here you were an investigator. What was that like? I mean, he really looked us up.
Right.
I mean, he went on my LinkedIn and all. Not that I put anything on LinkedIn, but,
And those shows seem to do better.
Yeah.
The ones with some structure. Now, Matt, on the other hand, is sort of...
Matt was fly by the seat of your pants. Yeah. And it was good, though.
Yeah, it was good.
We had a lot of fun, but my only thing with Tommy's was long.
Tommy's was 3 hours.
We did like 3 hours in there.
I remember walking out of that studio going, oh.
And we went to dinner that night. That's the place we went to dinner on the beach.
Yeah.
The other place we went to the cigar place.
Yeah.
We went to dinner that night. There was like the five of us. It was me, you.
Oh,
Down,
yeah. There was a combined
Elite,
50
Cox.
years in prison in that room.
And two ex-cops.
Right. And two guys. By the way, I've heard things about, I've never worked with you. You never took a nickel from what I understand. No. I was afraid to pick a quarter up off the ground. And we're sitting in the room. But that's the cool thing about podcasting, just to bring it all around. That's the cool thing about what we do. We can bring those people in here and meet somewhere in the middle, being retired.
One story about that. We went out to dinner. Remember, we were with the Ben Sachs kid.
Yep.
Yeah, we went out there was like 15 of us at a table eating dinner. And Elite and Dowd are like, yeah, got it. Don't worry about it.
Oh, they walked out.
I go to the bathroom. Everybody's sitting outside. I go to the bathroom to walk out. The waitress stops me and says, sorry, you guys didn't pay your tab.
What? That was a taco place or something like that. Yeah, I forget the name. It was in Del Rey.
Yeah.
It was in Del Rey. So
That's when Chantel got a ride over there in that Ferrari.
oh yeah. So Chantel is like our little sister. All right, so we protect her like she is our sister. And while we were up in recording
with Tommy,
she was on Tinder or whatever the heck dating app. They're match
sitting in a bar on Tinder.
Yeah, a match or something, and some guy comes over and he looks like the biggest sleazeball in the world,
driving a Ferrari.
And so we walk up, you and I walk up, and we sort of just give the guy a look. And I remember shaking the guy's hand. He puts out his hand. He was like one of these, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, what's going on?" Shakes her hand. I grip his hand. I give him like the
death grip.
Don't fuck with me grip. And I just look at Chantel. You okay? And we waited outside for her. Yeah. But you know that's. But you meet all these different people throughout this journey of podcasting, and it all started with episode 9. I mean, we're 90 episodes removed from that.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And we have a couple in the bank beyond here.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time season 2 ends, we're going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 110. Season 2 is going to close in December, somewhere in that neighborhood.
And we have some good shows coming up.
We got some great shows coming up. So that's the difference now.
Yeah.
The difference now is where we would have to go look for people.
Now people are contacting us.
People are contacting us.
And you know what's great too? Former guests are getting people for us.
Before we leave, what if there was one guest that hasn't come back in any way, shape, or form that you wanted to get back in, who do you think it would be?
You know, I'd like to get a couple. I'd like to talk to the guests to find out how we help them.
Mm.
You know, I mean, we've had Gene back, but we had Gene
with John.
With John.
Yeah.
So we got to follow up with Gene.
And that's a 4-hour ride, so it's hard to ask Gene to do that stuff.
Billy Bart.
Billy Bart would be good. You know, I haven't reached out to Billy Bart.
Neither have I. I'd love to see how he's doing.
Yeah. For me, it's Jay Ponte.
Yeah.
I want to get him back.
Let's get him back.
Get him back in here because there's some time that's been removed from that initial awkward first re-meet.
Yeah.
And I'd like to find out a little bit more about him. Maybe really get into it. Is there a guest that you would want to get in here? And I'm not talking a name. Like, I'm talking about somebody who you, Mike Failace, would want to get in here to talk to.
Jennifer Aniston.
God, why? Oh, my God, no.
Someone I'd like to get in here. I don't know. We've had a. How about Darryl Strawberry?
Darryl Strawberry would be a really, really good one.
Darryl Strawberry or Dwight Gooden. You know, these are guys who've been through hell and back.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I mean, Darryl Strawberry's got a suffering story, and look at him now. You know, he's a ultra religious. You know,
I think I'd like to talk to Joe Pistone, Donnie Brasco, just to hear his. And he's told his story so many times. It's not that. It's the angle that I would like to talk to him is when you were under and you laid your head on the pillow every night, not knowing if tomorrow was your day. How did you go to sleep?
Yeah.
And that's the question that I would like to ask him.
You know who else we got to get back on or get back to? Not back on. We were this close to getting him. Jerry Spezial.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to Jerry. You know, and Jerry,
he was so a friend
busy.
of the show for a while. I mean, we were texting back and forth all the time.
I would reach out to him. I
want to come on, I want to come on, and he just never did.
You know, so we got all this different stuff coming on, moving on in the future, moving onward and upward, and you know, let's get down to the grassroots of what this is, this podcast, and listening to all this suffering and the suffering of episode 9, how it all started. What do you think this journey has taught you?
You know, you never know how bad someone has it. You know, there's a saying. It says something like, "You don't know what someone's going through, so like be nice every day." You know, you see someone and they're happy-go-lucky, and you don't know what their real story is. You know, Tara Madelone for one. You know, unfortunately, I see Tara almost every day now. But I never knew all the suffering that she went through. And she's got such a great outlook and a great attitude on everything. I mean, you never know what someone's going through or what they went through.
Here's what I've learned. When you were in your darkest times, when I was in my darkest times, it would have been real easy just to give up and to quit. Early on in this show, There had been times when I get a little downtrodden, maybe an episode doesn't do very well, it bruises your ego a little bit, and it would have been very easy to say, you know what?
Fuck it.
Well, I'm done. But we never quit.
No.
We never once quit.
pushing on.
We never gave up. We always kept pushing forward.
Because we got the same attitude. We're not quitters. We're going to take something on, we take the bull by the horns and let's go.
And I would love to do this show for as long as people want to listen or willing to listen. You know, until somebody kicks us off the air, I'm willing to go.
Well, you do have that picture of us with the beards and everything, so we could use it.
The Depama app? The Depama app. Who, listen, you know, Mike is, I love Mike to death. He's one of us now. I mean,
without doubt.
He's the unofficial third co-host.
And listen, he was instrumental in getting Dental Development started.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that came out of this show.
Yeah, our nonprofit.
Dental Development Project.
Yeah.
You know, we haven't done that much with it lately, but we're still, you know, we've given out.
It's there and it's in place for those in need.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've made all these different connections.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most beneficial connections recently is Irish Angel.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about how to run a nonprofit? That's where I'm watching.
Yeah.
I'm watching how they do it because they got it.
Without a doubt.
And they got a lot of people.
Yeah.
Mike.
Kev, I just want to, it is a pleasure coming up here. I think you're doing a great job with this.
I think I can't do without you, bro.
You really are. You're doing a great job. Like I said, you are the pioneer of this. You're the brains behind this operation. I'm just the pretty or ugly face, whichever way you want to say it. But it's a pleasure coming up here all the time. We hooked up with Andrew with A&J Media, and Andrew's the best. He really is. He does so much for us.
He's always willing to go the extra mile. Him and Katia, his wife. I mean, they took us in, they treat us like family. And as long as they'll have us,
we're here.
Yeah. Because my goal with A&J Media, and I'm going to throw this out to Andrew right now, is one room is going to be strictly ours.
Our room. Yeah.
Our room. That's ours.
So when people come in, they see it, you could say, oh, that's a Suffering Podcast.
Yeah, we don't go there. We don't
like
go
with
there.
WFA and the Mike Francesa studio.
Yeah, that's ours. The Siegfried and Roy Theater. But before we go, I did give a window into our first picture together as podcasters. And it's you and I standing together for episode 9. And I think that's a good place to leave it.
I remember exactly what I was wearing.
Yes, you.
I had the hat on backwards, and I had my...
Was it Notre Dame, was it?
Notre Dame, yeah.
Notre Dame, yeah.
Play like a champion today.
And I had a black shirt on, and unfortunately, I didn't wear any podcast gear that day. That was like one of the few times I didn't.
We didn't have podcast gear back then.
I think I had like a printed sweatshirt that I got offline or got online or something.
Now we have T-shirts. Now we have hooded sweatshirts, regular sweatshirts.
Just go on to sufferingpodcast.com. You can find all that stuff.
Yeah, we should buy some of our merchandise, please.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast.
9D9.
The Suffering of 9D9.
Crazy.
And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Mike, I'm going to let you go first on this one.
You know what? Just keep pushing along. You know, like you said, there's times we want to quit. There's times you want to quit in anything. There's times we want to quit in a podcast. But to me, it's just the positive feedback that we're getting. You know, I feel like we owe it to people now. You know, because it's helping people. You know, and that's what I say. I honestly believe that we owe it to our listeners to keep pushing forward and moving on. I think what I've learned is anything in the world is possible. When I was a little kid, I never thought I was going to do my own show or anything like that. You're talking to the shampoo bottle in the shower or something like that. You try to be a broadcaster for sports radio. But I never thought I was going to do my own show. But through perseverance, through hard work, through never quitting, and through constant self-education and just moving forward, overcoming those obstacles, overcoming the suffering, you can pretty much do anything. Well, you know, and the other thing is you learn from the ups and the downs. Yes, and onward and upward. Yep. So we'll see you for another special episode on episode 999. Oh, could you imagine? Yeah. And we'll be in wheelchairs. Andrew will have to get a studio on the first floor. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, the Suffering of 9D9. That's episode 99. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram. Follow Mike at Mike_Failace. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And as always, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode of the Suffering Podcast.